So in this panel, what I wanted to do is get folks from K-12, from community college, from the state, from the Commonwealth, policymakers, educators of different levels, to talk to one another about what we are not coordinating on and what are the solutions we have stumbled, but maybe we can do better if we start talking to one another. So that's why I called it Convergence and Coordination, what Virginia's AI moment requires. So I'm going to call them up. Please take a seat. And I'm going to do my best to introduce them very quickly. Dr. Robert Brandon, president of New River Community College and chair of the Virginia Community College System AI Task Force. You can sit wherever you want. Gautam Sethi, Chief Information Technology Officer, Fairfax County Public Schools. So community colleges and K-12 represented. Dr. Jamil Jaffer, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute, assistant professor of law. He can also tell us of many of the other things that he's doing. And last but not least, Delegate Cliff Hayes of the Virginia House of Delegates, 91st District, chair of the House Communications, Technology, and Innovation Committee, chair of JCOTS, Joint Commission on Science, on Technology and Science, and lead architect of Virginia's Consumer Data Protection Act. So with that, I'm going to sit down and start the conversation. I will also be monitoring at the end the questions from the audience, so we can move along that way. But in just a round robin very quickly, what did I miss in your introduction? One sentence that you want folks to know that I did not include.
Let's make an order and we'll stick to it. Where do we start it from? Left or right?
Delegate Hayes, yes.
Let's do it.
The elected official.
So we're going to add to this conversation something that wasn't mentioned? Is that what it?
Yeah. Yes. Tell us something interesting about you.
Something interesting, when I went to college, undergrad, I also played baseball.
Nice.
I was a third baseman there, so I had the double blessing of playing a game that paid for my undergraduate degree in computer information systems.
Okay, very nice.
Well, I can't pass up an opportunity to brag about New River Community College. So you may have seen that recently we were named a top 200 community college by the Aspen Institute, reflecting our outstanding achievement in student success.
Congratulations.
That's amazing. Fairfax County School obviously tops all and feeds into all of these community colleges. So the success is built on strong foundations is what I will say, I believe. One thing you wouldn't say, I've been in education for 25 years now, 4 school districts, Fairfax being the 4th, but I'm not an educator. I'm a technologist. I was trained as a technologist. This weekend I was up 3 a.m. playing with a vibe coding tool. So that's what drives me, and that's why I'm here.
You know, we're in an age of AI, and I think AI is going to be transformative and fundamentally game-changing for human civilization, but people still matter. I can trace every job I have today and every job I've had in the last 30 years back to a person who I randomly met at a fraternity event at George Mason University when I was at UCLA, and this person was at George Mason, and it was Gold Cup, the Virginia steeplechase race.
All right. See, that's what happens when you ask things of people. Give me one more interesting tidbit about you that I don't get from your bio. Very cool. All right, so I'm going to start with a couple of, quick questions. Everybody's talking AI readiness, right? Whether for students or instructors or employees. And I always want to ask when people use terms, what do you mean by it? So instead of asking you for a definition, I would ask you for a contextual, your contextual understanding. So Delegate Hayes, you sit at 2 intersections, and very few people occupy those intersections. Very interesting. You're chair of Communications, Technology, and Innovation, chair of JCOTS. And from those seats, when you look at Virginia's education landscape, K-12, community college, higher ed, to the extent that those are visible to you, what are you able to see regarding AI readiness? Do you think we are AI ready? What do you see missing? What do you see that is good? Movement in the right, wrong direction?
One of the good things I think I see is a lot of attention around artificial intelligence and a lot of interest. Whether you're talking K through 12, community colleges, our four-year institutions, everybody seems to be focused and geared towards trying to do whatever we can do to get ourselves ready. The problem and the obvious issue and I think hurdle is that I don't see a whole lot of coordination from that same stream, if you will. And we got to figure out a way to make this thing happen from K through 12 right on into the community college system and on into our four-year institutions so that there would be this coordination at every level is where I seem to think that there needs to be. Secondly, I think there needs to be also, with intentionality from the state's perspective, providing investment in those areas for that coordination. So in other words, don't leave it up to someone else to provide this coordination. How is it that we can work along with and collaborate with each one of those levels, bringing everybody together and coordinating what that funding need is in order to make that happen and then provide that funding? You mentioned that I happen to serve as chair of the Joint Commission on Technology and Science, but also chair of Communications Technology and Innovation. The third interesting thing about that is I'm the chair of General Government and Capital Outlay of Appropriations. So the money part matters. The money part matters.
Okay, maybe we get to talk about money later in this panel, but I'm going to bring it back to coordination. Robert, so many community colleges. Is each one doing their own thing? Is there coordination at the community college level?
Absolutely. I think one thing people don't understand about the community college system is the scale of the community college system. We serve, any given year, we serve over 200,000 learners. Taken together, we are the largest institution of higher education in the state. We serve students who are on our campuses online. We serve students who are visiting from universities, who are in high school, who are working for employers actively and trying to improve their skills. There are 23 community colleges across the state. And so we see those as 23 innovation centers. You heard from Dr. Knight some of the wonderful things happening at Northern Virginia Community College. They're working with short-term credentials in AI and in data science, but you have other things in other parts of the state. Central Virginia working with their employers, in the New River Valley working with one of our local universities to embed AI competencies in workforce education. And so what we've done is we've created a communities of practice, which brings people from all 23 community colleges together to discuss those use cases, discuss what has emerged as the most promising interventions for students, and then to take those things to scale. And so I think that's really the model that has a lot of value, both in the community college system and across the Commonwealth, is allowing the innovators to innovate and then finding ways to get together and to take that to scale.
You mentioned scale. Yes, I did not appreciate the scale of the community college system until I moved to Northern Virginia. But Gautam, talk to me about scale. Fairfax County alone, your decisions about, hopefully you're not vibe coding the tools for Fairfax County Public Schools at 3 a.m., but talk to me about your decisions. What goes through your mind as you begin to think, what do we need for our students, for our instructors? You have over 180,000 students. So when you think about readiness, who are you thinking about first and what exactly?
So speaking of scale, right, we have 180,000 students, but that is not our entire scale. We have 40,000 staff, so that's the adults in the system. And as we have gone down this journey of AI readiness and AI literacy, we are discovering that it's a larger conversation. We have to support our families in that journey, so we have to be able to engage with the families. Because if they don't understand it, they can't bring it home, they can't have a conversation, and they can't support their students when they're outside the school buildings or the school hallways. You combine all of that, that scale is somewhere in the range of 500,000 learners somewhere out there that we need to be able to influence, be able to support, be able to provide guidance, and get them to understand this technology, which is also moving so fast that it's hard to kind of keep pace with it. So our decisions have to be tested through various gates, through various channels before they can execute. Obviously, on tool side, when we are procuring tools, we created a data privacy agreements, which is in the K-12 space at least serves as a national data privacy agreement, and that has been with tools previously. AI is sort of new, but our data privacy agreements have existed for a while. So, and that serves as a baseline. We are not going into a technology partnership without having the data privacy agreements in place. But to bring this to scale to ensure that we can all cohesively keep moving forward, we feel the AI literacy journey is of the entire community and not just the students. Because everybody has to understand it, whether you adapt it or not, whether you decide this is not for you, that is a decision as adults, even as kids can make, and we have very smart kids. But we all have to be in a room together and have the same points that we can understand and drive by. That is a scale, and it's a large scale. And it just showed up, and now everybody expects it to magically be workable and coherent.
I'm so glad that you mentioned parents. I was at an event that Fairfax County Public Schools threw, what was it, just last fall? Partnership with Google as part of a bigger initiative. And I was there as a parent of a 9th grader. But I noticed so many parents in the audience, and it was interesting to see the parents being excited and saying, yes, we want to hear, what are you doing? So I'm very glad that you mentioned the parent side. Yeah. Jamil, you have been in more task forces than I can remember. At the state level, you engage at the federal level. So as you think about AI readiness, and so you cast kind of a bigger gaze, what are folks talking about? What do they want? What are they concerned?
Well, look, I think everyone wants to be educated in the first instance, understand what the capability is, what the opportunities are, and what the potential pitfalls are. And I think across the board, you see learners, educators, employers struggling with, how do I employ this capability? How do I bring my workforce up to speed? How do I bring my students up to speed? How do I bring my educators up to speed in a time frame that allows me to take advantage of these opportunities, but also not make mistakes where I undermine student learning or undermine the capability of my workers to drive new innovation. And the challenge is things are moving so quickly, so rapidly, that if you're not keeping up day to day or week to week, you're falling behind, and it's almost impossible to catch up. And so to me, the real challenge for all of us, educators, learners, employers, employees, is how do I get out of my own way to jump on this opportunity now? I'm doing this 5-day AI agents intensive course that Google offers for free. It started in November. I'm starting and finishing it now because I just got behind. And the truth is, the technology's already moved well past where that class taught you to go. And so, I think the biggest challenge, the most important thing for people to do, is to simply get off the X. Meaning, moving forward, try it out, use it, deploy it in your classroom. If you're a learner, learn how to use it. Do not be afraid of it. I worry that a lot of educators are worried that if we start training our students with or to use or to employ AI, that will undermine their critical thinking abilities. They won't be able to learn. They won't be successful. Same thing with workers. I actually think the reality is just the opposite. I think that AI can help you engage and improve your critical thinking if you're given the right tools on how to use it and how to employ it. And that's the most important thing. But if we're afraid of it, we are underserving ourselves and our students and our workers and our employees and our own ability to succeed on behalf of our constituents. And so I'm a big believer in adopt now, adopt fast, make mistakes if you have to, but better to be using it and learning it than falling behind.
I appreciate that perspective. Robert, talking about tempo and urgency, you don't have the luxury even of higher ed or 4 years. In 2 years, you have to get these learners out the door. Tell me a little bit about what the community college system and the task force that you're heading, what are you doing? I know you're moving, you're creating so many new things, and sometimes I look at the community college system and I envy you for how fast you're moving. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing, and is there a coherence in what you're doing? Say a student went from public K-12 to community college and then comes to Mason. Where are things breaking from your perspective?
That was 2 questions.
Yes, that's 2 questions.
Let me start with what we're doing. So the VCCS pulled itself together 2 years ago to look at the question of AI and what it needed to be for its students in this moment. And we met with industry partners, we met with university partners, we brought in students and faculty and staff focus groups to create a plan. If you Google VCCS AI, you'll find yourself at our webpage that goes over that plan. But we're really looking at 5 areas. We're looking at professional development. How do we prepare, especially faculty, but faculty and staff, to meet this moment and to meet this changing and disruptive technology and help students through it. We're looking at teaching and learning. What are ways that AI can empower the classroom, and what are the skills for the future or the current workforce or the future workforce? And then along with that, student services. How can we support students more effectively using AI? That's really manifested itself in freeing up advisors from some of the mundane tasks like creating of schedules and things like that, to having the real conversation that advisors need to have with students, operations as well. And so those are the pillars of our AI strategy. If you're talking about where the break is, what are the issues that we're seeing? I think there's 2 things. And one, you all talked about it earlier. We talk about AI literacy, but there doesn't seem to be a shared and agreed upon model for AI literacy. And so I think as that emerges, that's going to be very, very helpful. And its current place, all the community colleges are very well aligned with their local universities. And so we are very closely engaged. We have the back and forth. So we have an understanding of what those universities are doing and what the students at those universities need. I think the next step for us is to pull ourselves together through some of these emerging groups so that we can define that. The other break that I see, especially as a rural serving college president, is a real equity gap as far as technology goes, and the access to high-level classes in that technology. Many students around the state through dual enrollment have excellent access to high-level math classes, high-level technology classes, even associate's degrees and certifications in these kind of technologies. But when you move out to the rural areas, partially because of the availability of qualified faculty, partially because of financial and technological barriers, those students don't have the same access to those classes, those technologies, or those students. And I think that is a problem that the community colleges cannot solve on their own. And so that's a place where we're really going to have to focus ourselves in the coming years to correct that problem.
Gautam, to you, as you think about now K-12 potentially getting into community college, and you think about this handoff, where is it currently breaking? What are the challenges you're seeing, but also maybe the opportunities? How could we get to this shared understanding and then shared building and execution?
Let me just underscore one thing that was just said, right? That the equity side of it is really important. I think a lot of debates are happening in classrooms and in cul-de-sacs where people decide whether AI is right for my school division, my school district, my class. We're missing out on some big pictures here. Pew Research just did a survey and they came back with numbers, and it was pretty fascinating. It's in the more affluent suburban houses that families are having a conversation with their children about AI, those students have access to the $20, the $200 models. And if you don't know the difference, go try out the research grade intelligence that comes out with an AI versus a free model that produces an output, dramatically different. So if you have a child who has access to that and can use it in a controlled environment, you're producing an output which is going to go further faster. And then we are debating this, what is going to be in the classrooms at the policy level, at the cul-de-sac level. That is not helping a whole slew of student populations. When the pandemic started, digital divide was the biggest thing, right? They don't have internet access at home. Even if you gave your laptop, you still won't be able to connect on our high-speed connection. This is going to be the new digital divide of possibly the next few years, where some students will just not have access if they're not given access in a place of education. And I think that's going to be a challenge. When it comes to coherence, I don't know if you can solve that. I feel the velocity or the pace of change is far exceeding our ability to keep up with it, even as individuals. And if you think about institutions, our prior models can't survive this pace as far as I can tell from a distance. Maybe we figure it out. We are very smart, we are very intelligent people. Collectively, if we sit down and think about it, we can come back with an output which allows us to align. But the velocity, oh my God.
So speaking of velocity and incoherence in a way, one of the questions that I asked Congressman Beyer was on the lack of a coherent federal AI policy. And Delegate Hayes, you're doing a lot of things with JCOTS and other committees you're in. What are you and your colleagues asking yourselves? How can you help us maybe become a little bit more coordinated and come up with a coherent strategy? Maybe even in terms of outlining what are the things we shouldn't be doing as opposed to the things we should be doing now or later. Is there any clarity, any movement?
Well, I guess thinking about Congressman Beyer when he was here, something that is consistent with something that he said on the federal level applies in the state legislature as well. There is a very, very shallow or lack of depth when it comes to an understanding of technology, and particularly now, artificial intelligence. And so with these 100 delegates and 40 senators, these 140 people, we literally are crafting law that everybody's going to have to follow. We're not crafting ideas, we're crafting a law. And so for this body not to have the depth and breadth and full understanding of what it is they're voting on is a challenge, it's a problem. So we have got to do more listening, right? And as we legislate, depend on those bodies that need the help, the assistance, the policy, the law, the funding. Listen to you all collectively and hear your ideas, and then we begin to move and invest according to what those needs are. The problem is when you get elected officials or politicians come into a session, and in Virginia we have part-time session, so we only are making laws for 45 days out of the entire year. So we go off in the summer to a conference or something, we hear what's in vogue and what's trending, and then everybody comes back and you get 100 people putting bills in according to what's they believe is in vogue or what's popular amongst people, as opposed to really thoroughly thinking about things in a way that we're shaping policy for everyone that's going to have to follow it. And I think it's a unique perspective that I have, because my other hat is I've literally worked in technology management policy for over 30 years, including at the level of CIO. So I understand that side administratively, what's going to be necessary. But that's, there might be two other individuals in the entire General Assembly that comes from that perspective. But when you're, again, talking about moving laws and policy in 45 days, and we have some 2,400 bills, it's not even possible for all of those individuals to fully understand what they're voting on. So it's going to be really, really important for us to coordinate, for us to hear from you all, your specialty, your ideas. That last panel of these CIOs at the colleges, universities, including K through 12, and to get these ideas, because that's where the laws come from. It's from the people. And you see a need that we need to address, then please bring that information forward so we'll, in a more strategic way, be able to provide the tools that you will need to implement your ideas.
I appreciate it. Yes, Jamil, get in on this.
I think there's something really important that Delegate Hayes said there, which is, there's this felt need, I think, amongst legislators, policymakers, administrators to do something about AI, to put in place rules or policies or procedures. That instinct is important, but not always the right one, right? And it's always, I think you see it in the EU, right? If you wonder why the European Union has so much less innovation than the United States, it's simple. The EU legislature feels the need to do something every time, and they act quickly, and they act with heavy regulation, they act, and they move in ways that they have good intentions. They intend to protect their citizens, their people, but they're getting in the way of their own ability to innovate economically and technologically. And that's a huge mistake. And so it's excellent to hear Delegate Hayes say, look, you need to think about what you should do here. Yes, there may be need to act. Child protection is an area where almost certainly state legislatures ought to act and take action to protect our children from some of these harms. But there are places where not acting may be the better thing for our nation and for our states and for the Commonwealth as we move forward and try to think about how to innovate and move forward and try these things out and test them. Now, there are going to be challenges, right? Nobody can doubt that. But at times, you want those challenges to help you excel and exceed and move forward, right? That is in times how we oftentimes win. The U.S. is, if we're gonna win the AI race with China, right? And that is part of our challenge today. We are in a national race with other nations to get to the win on this. And there are places we can collaborate, to be sure, but we are in a race, don't kid yourself. If we're gonna win that race, we're not gonna win it on the number of people we throw at the problem. We're not gonna win on the number of PhDs we create. We're not gonna win it on the amount of state dollars we throw at it. We're gonna win because we innovate and move faster. That's how we've always won. That's how we've always succeeded. And we should not get in our own way when that time comes. So I think Delegate Hayes is exactly right. There are things for legislatures to do, but you got to think smart, you got to move carefully, and the same is true of school administrators, the same is true of university administrators, and the same is true of I think everybody on this panel.
Speaking of things that we can do, I want to move on from just identifying challenges and doing diagnosis to remedies, potential remedies. And one of the remedies is don't move too fast. It seems. Be thoughtful about where you move and what you do. So, Gautam, I will start with you this time. If you could think of one mechanism, a pain point that you've heard, either from the event today or from your own landscape inside K-12, what would you do? Would you focus on a policy, on a shared platform, on data sharing? I'm giving you, it's like a multiple choice, but you can, it's a unique one because you can also write in your answer. A data sharing agreement, a convenings, what is it?
So all of the above is an option?
All of the above.
E, right? So I guess what you're asking is what is the silver bullet which fixes everything in one shot?
AI.
It'll
fix it all.
We should ask AI that question. I feel like we need to be able to pause and imagine what does the future look like, which all of us have some ideas. And then we need to be able to have a conversation with the young adult who's going through our system, which starts in high school, even earlier in our cases. Middle school kids are really sharp nowadays. And through the whole graduation pipeline to say, bring in those students, ask them what are their fears, ask them what are they expecting to see, ask them what their hopes and aspirations are. And I would imagine we get alignment on where they want to get to, but that should be what informs the adult decisions in the room. many times decisions are made by adults without having a depth and width of understanding of what's going on in those spaces. And kids have a very loud voice. I feel like we need to figure out how to listen to that voice and then react to it. Much like what Delegate Hayes was saying, but maybe even bringing the young minds in there. There's some really interesting conversations coming out of those classrooms.
Definitely, if you saw the high school posters during the poster session, you can sense the unusual level of maturity that is coming out. It's really, it's inspiring. Robert, what would you build? What do you think we need?
So I'm going back to that idea of really equity across the Commonwealth in this area, and I think there's a vehicle that exists across the country, and it's been proven to be very effective in helping students improve their skills, prepare themselves for university and for work, and that's dual enrollment. And so we have this engine of dual enrollment across the Commonwealth, but I would encourage us to invest in that more directly. Currently, that is heavily funded either by community colleges, school system, or students themselves. But if you look over into North Carolina, someone who we compete with economically and for business rankings, they have a dual enrollment promise program, for lack of better words. They've invested their money in the type of pathways that they want students to pursue in high school. And this leverages the technology resources that the community college has, the partnerships with business and industries that community colleges have, the connections with the universities that community colleges have, and helps to bring those to students not only in the wealthiest part of the states, but across the states, even into the rural areas. So I would encourage us to find ways, whether that's through the General Assembly or through businesses, to invest in those dual enrollment pathways that can move the needle on this technology adoption, comprehension, and readiness. And I think that's a pathway forward for us.
Delegate Hayes, what would you like to see in Virginia? Maybe not this year because a lot of members seem to be part-time, but in 2 years, what would be a success story?
It's so much and it moves so fast and quickly. One of the major obstacles we have, again, for us, is that we only begin to deal with legislation in January for 45 days. And the rest of the year, we're not dealing with actually passing laws. It's only 45 days. So that's a part-time situation here. On a federal level, it's even slower. And so I guess the KPIs for us to monitor, and so that in 2 years we can kind of take a look back to see might be some of those changes, I guess, the investments in those local K through 12 situations, so that, for instance, as Mr. President mentioned, the dual enrollment programs, I can see a great benefit there. That can begin to touch on something I said earlier, how we need to have this seamless if you will, transition and investment all the way from K through 12 through our college system is going to be extremely important. So for me, if the funding isn't there, then a lot of times you just have ideas. And when you're trying to implement, you kind of come up short because you don't have the resources to do so. The president also continues to emphasize the equity piece. And that's a huge issue also, because there might be some families who have the resources and they can do what they need to do to get to wherever that training is needed. But then if we're talking about helping the whole society and lifting the entire society up, then how is it that we reach those students who may not have the resources? Huge problem isn't just in tech, but just like healthcare, they talk about the social dynamics of healthcare, right? Same is true with bringing and getting and infusing the talent that is going to be needed in our across the board is taking care of other social issues. For a family whose parent, single parent, is making less than minimum wage, having to work 3 jobs, they can't put that same time in with Johnny or Susie to reinforce what they learn in the classroom. So what impact is that going to have? So all I can say is there needs to be a holistic approach. I mean, there is no better time in this revolution when you compare it to other revolutions, other shifts, than this one right here. Because everybody, none of us were prepared for this thing that landed in our laps, this artificial intelligence. But all of us have an opportunity because we've gotten this reset, if you will, and we're all just trying to get started together. And if that's the case, then like at the General Assembly level, what I see is a lot of people interested in sponsoring bills to scare the heck out of everybody when it comes to artificial intelligence. I'm not hearing a whole lot of bills or seeing a lot of bills about how we're going to invest and make sure that the students are trained and our future will be taken care of. I'm hearing and seeing bills that just want to, be on a splash on the front page of the paper versus true investment to make sure that we're ready.
It's so good to hear you say that we need to build, we need to be more accountable. What are you actually building? Don't just tell me about your fears. You are hawkish on building, Jamil. What would you like to build?
It's a good thing, right?
Yes.
Okay. What do I like to build? Look, I think at the end of the day, the delegate and all of our panelists are exactly right. What we need to build here in Virginia is capacity, right? The future workforce is right here in front of us. It's in the Fairfax County schools, it's in the New River Community College District. It's down in Richmond. It's up here in Northern Virginia. We are in a unique place as the Commonwealth. If you wonder where the cloud is, it's in Loudoun County. Cloud is not in the sky. It's not somewhere far away. It is literally in Loudoun County. We have the largest concentration.
And we will have a panel on that, by the way.
There you go. We have the largest concentration of military intelligence community assets in the world, in Virginia. We have the headquarters of the Department of Defense, Department of War. We have the CIA. We have the FBI Training Academy. We have all these massive resources. We have an amazing population. We have one of the Commonwealth's most diverse university here at George Mason, Virginia's top technology university down at Virginia Tech, across the Commonwealth. And we have feeder institutions like the community colleges and the public schools that are doing amazing things. We have the workforce of the future right here in the Commonwealth. We have the jobs of the future right here in the Commonwealth. All we have to do is connect them up. We have a unique moment as the number 1 or number 2 business state in the country, and we need to jump on it. And I worry that we are not moving fast enough to take advantage of the opportunity we've been given. We have the jobs, we have the people, we have the institutions. We have to jump on the opportunity.
All right, so jump on the opportunity. I'm going to make it more personal because you can always tell what people actually believe when you make it more personal. So you may be parents, you may be uncles. I want to talk about the kids. All right, so as a parent or an uncle, whatever your arrangement, your life story is, as you think about those closest to you, what would you like to see in K-12? What would you like to see in the community college? What would you like to see happening at George Mason University? So now it's not theoretical anymore. Now it's personal. What are some of the fears that you have? When I go and talk to families,
the first question that they ask me is, hey, what are you doing? I'm worried about my kid not being able to find a job. They're either enrolled or they're thinking about this degree or that. Is anything safe? So I want to ask, from your perspective, forget about the bills, the part-time, the challenges. What would you like to see happening? More personal.
All right. From a school perspective, we have the frameworks. We talk about portrait of a graduate, critical thinking skills. All of them are still relevant. If I was to keep it simple, I would say students coming out of Fairfax in the realm of AI should be able to have agency and discernment. And those are very specific when you're working with a tool which is so personal. If you've ever used that tool is a one-on-one interaction with something. There is no technology that is as personal as AI. And agency and discernment becomes so much more important because in that moment, in that seat with you and the keyboard, you have to decide and make a decision. Is this a partnership? Is this a cognitive offload? Is this a cognitive surrender? And where is the line which I want to keep? And that agency that student has to walk out with so they can go thrive through the rest of their life.
Great. So you gave us 2 learning outcomes for a potential curriculum. That's concrete. Robert.
So I have 2 children. One is a student at New River Community College. The other is a student at a university. And for both of those children, I think for a long time, higher education, at least community colleges, they were really focused on access. The idea that if the people had access to higher education wherever they were, it would uplift them, give them more opportunities, and improve our communities. And we got really good at access. And then we started talking about how access was enough. Access without success, without completion is really of no value. And so we've really invested ourselves in ensuring that the students who come to us are prepared to graduate, to succeed, to either move into the workforce or be successful when they transfer to the university. And we see those outcomes. But I think the current moment requires something a little bit different, and that's to look beyond graduation. We're not really successful if we just open the door. We're not really successful if we just help them get their degrees. We're only successful if they're successful in their careers and as citizens. And so I hope for my daughter at New River, she finds that's something we talk about every day, is that success is measured in post-graduation success. And I hope my son at his university, I hope that institution is doing that. And I think the conversations that we're having here play into that post-graduation success. They have to have the tools that they need to be able to succeed. And I think a knowledge and a competency in artificial intelligence is part of that.
Thank you. That's exactly why I'm asking this question. To get things moving, you have to ask parents, what would you want to see? Delegate Hayes.
I would say, as a parent, my wife and I talk about this all the time strategically because our daughters, if it's something they want to get around me with, they'll go straight to their mom, and vice versa. They're grown, they're gone and grown. They're flying on their own with their own careers, and we're excited about it. But we do try to make sure that we emphasize to them the understanding of this artificial intelligence and to do all they can in their careers to embrace it, to learn it, and to let them know that this is here. Don't try to avoid it. Don't be afraid of it, etc. We have a daughter. Our youngest actually is a 4th grade teacher in Fairfax County.
Go Fairfax.
Yeah, so she loves it. She tries to make sure that she's incorporating and trying to use it in her teaching methods and being able to work along with the students as well. Our oldest is an attorney, and the same is there. In terms of her research, we always want to make sure you're dealing with laws, et cetera, that you have a human in the loop and all of this stuff. And so But at the same time, in terms of productivity and usefulness and leverage and the use of AI, we encourage her to do the same. And so with their generation, they're ready. I think in a lot of ways, again, I keep making this comparison and this observation amongst the old fogies at the General Assembly. All of this stuff that I'm hearing and seeing is about how bad AI is. Now, don't get me wrong, I do understand we have to have guardrails. But when is the policy making and the driving going to become about making sure that our generations and our society is ready and is going to use it at scale for the benefit of society? There are a lot of great ways to do that. And innovation, I think, is important. I think it's important that we go fast and all of that stuff. But innovation without guardrails is reckless. But at the same time, guardrails without the innovation is stifling and suffocating. So we have to find that sweet spot somewhere in there to make sure that we're doing both. We're not in the way of the innovation that's needed, and at the same time having guardrails to make sure that this stuff moves in a way that the whole society can move in a positive way.
Thank you. Jamil?
Yeah, look, I think Delegate Hayes is exactly right. You know, I have a 16-year-old son in Arlington Public Schools. I'm a part of the public school system in California. My wife's a part of the public school system. I served on public school board for a year in California, my home state. And so we are big believers in the public school system. But I have to ask, when is my public school system, when is Fairfax going to look like my house? Why can't my child have access to all these AI models with guardrails, fair enough, in the classroom? If we talk about access, if my kid who has access because he lives in, to your point, you know, a nice neighborhood in Arlington County, why isn't every child in Arlington County have access to it in the public school systems? We are letting our children down, and we are failing them if we do not take advantage of this moment, this opportunity in this Commonwealth, the most forward-leading technology state in the Union. It is crazy if we're going to fail our children in that way. And the reality is that, for better or for worse, and I love my public schools, don't get me wrong, it's not happening. And it has to happen not next month, not next year, tomorrow. It is not soon enough.
You see, folks, how passionate they get when you make it personal, when you ask them about your own kids. So the reason I asked that question is because I've been monitoring in the Q&A and also in the hallway conversations, people were telling me, ask more about the workforce, what's going to happen, and what we need to do for the students today, and for my kid who's thinking about college, or for my 9th grader, or for my 5th grader. So I really appreciate you opening yourself up and sharing your perspectives with me. Now, as we wrap up here, as I'm monitoring the time, I just want to give you one last opportunity. Any closing thoughts, any takeaway? And we can just go from Delegate Hayes. By the way, Delegate Hayes, we can always use more funding here at George Mason University. We have a lot of programs that we're trying to put together with community colleges, with K-12, and it's usually lack of funding to get from those great ideas to building something and executing it and sustain it. No pressure.
No pressure at all. Let me just start by saying your president and Dr. Washington isn't shy at all. And we've been able to respond to those requests in a great way.
On his behalf, thank you.
And oh yeah, absolutely. But it's a statement that he has made, the university has made, in your role. Not everybody has a chief artificial intelligence officer, you know, right out front and ingrained and helping to mold and shape some of the policies on the campus. That's literally driving, you know, not just in a techie kind of feel, but every area of discipline, in order to have that infused, it's great to have a role like yours that's going to help in that way. And I just want to give kudos to George Mason for doing that instead of just kind of, looking up to the sky and wondering where the AI direction is going to come from, but to literally invest in a role that will help drive where that's going, where the university is going. And I just want to encourage all of our universities to do the same.
Thank you. Robert?
I'm old enough that I can remember when online instruction came to the community college that I was at. It feels like a similar moment in time. There was a disruptive technology and everyone was scrambling to figure out what the future of education, and indeed some of the fears and conversations were exactly the same conversations we were having 30 years ago. As I think back to that time, I do not remember a sense of collaboration between the community colleges or the community college universities or the universities with each other. It did seem to be everyone for themselves. What heartens me right now is we have things like George Mason AI Day and other groups that are bringing people together. And so I think we have entered into this conversation in a more collaborative posture, and I think that is why I have a lot of hope for what comes next for this technology and the Commonwealth and our education system.
One quote to walk away with, it's from William Gibson, and it's used in context in the Valley and in tech circles a lot. And if you think about it for a minute, it'll start making sense. He said, not in the context of AI, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Sit on that for a minute. I keep thinking about this every time, 3 a.m. in the morning. It's like, it's happening somewhere. Is it happening here or not?
That's where it would end.
Wonderful. Thank you to all our panelists.